Good morning, everyone. My name is Angelo Umali. I'm the founder and CEO of Simple Wearables. It's a startup based here in Hong Kong. We create wearable devices for peace of mind. You can visit our website on www.simplewearables.com, and you can like our Facebook page if you search for Simple Wearables. Last year, we were named one of the hottest startups in Asia by CNN, and it's been a pleasure. It's been a great ride going through the formation of this company. Just a brief introduction about myself. I had 9 years experience at a tech company based in the Silicon Valley. It's Agilent Technologies. We make measurement equipment. So it was a hardware-based company, and I was in charge of microwave communications division here in Asia. So that involved all the wireless communication standards and equipment that tested them, ranging from radars and satellites to cellular communication stations, as well as the RFIDs and Bluetooths. So it's a wide spectrum of different standards. My background has been always in electrical engineering. Actually, Kevin and I went to school together at UCLA. I got my bachelor's degree there back in 2003, and then I did my master's degree at Stanford, focusing on wireless communications. I also went to Philippine Science High School back in the Philippines, and I graduated back in 1999. Then we moved to the US after that. As side hobbies of mine are actually photography. You can check out my Instagram. It's AYOUMALI. And on the side, I teach fitness classes because I just like fitness. So that's a bit of background about myself. And what I'm going to be presenting to you today is about wearable computing. But actually, there's a couple debates on what was the first wearable computer. Some people think it started back in the last decade, but actually it started back in 1961, done by Shannon and Thorpe, and it was a device that they wore in their shoe, measuring the different frequencies or how fast the roulette table was rotating, and they used that to cheat. So that's why they didn't publish the results until 1969. In terms of defining what wearable computers are, this is my definition. They're miniature devices worn by the user for general or specific purposes. And on the left here, you could be as general as possible, just like the Google Glass, for example, where you can download applications and tailor the functions of the device through the application. So it's a platform that welcomes developers to develop on it. On the other end of the spectrum are very specific solutions, just like the Metria adhesive wearable device, and I met with this company back in CES last week. They can measure different vital signs, and it's disposable. So it's a very specific purpose. And in between these, there's a variety of different products that tend to become platforms over time or tend to become more specific over time. But the important thing to know about wearable computing, it's a segment of the Internet of Things phenomenon where different devices are communicating with each other, but it's the only one that has the interface with a human. So it's a machine-to-human interaction that's at the core of wearable computing. In terms of the market, there's a lot of devices out there that are expected to ship over time, and this is research done by ABI, and it's projected by 2016 there will be 200 million devices out there. There are many different projections, but the trend is the same. It's increasing over time. In the beginning, there were the platforms where you wear the device and you provide it with data. So this goes for the now closed Nike wearable device that you use, and it tracks your steps. So it's basically you providing it with some data. And over time, it just shows you the trend of this data. But I think in the future, the solutions for wearable devices will be more of an insight provider, where you provide it with data and then it answers the question of so what. After you do several steps a day, it will tell you, okay, now this is your pattern, this is what you should do next. And I think that's the future of wearable computing. In terms of the different categories of wearable devices, the number one the most popular ones are the fitness trackers, and these you know through uh, what you have out there, just like the Fitbits, the Jawbones, and all the other wearable devices that track your steps and heart rate. These are the ones that have taken off, primarily because fitness fanatics have always wanted to track themselves, and this is the market that has become defined by the phrase of um, uh, their activity trackers and the quantifiable self. That's the phrase that has defined the segment. Now, all the other fields or the different categories are also going to be projected to be growing, and one of those are the healthcare segment, and that's, for example, the Metria device that monitors vital signs. And all the other devices like the GoPros, the wearable cameras, those are going to be exploding as well over time. And who knows what the other categories or segments that will be created by the entrepreneurs and startups around the world from now on. Now, let me jump into the crux of the presentation. For my presentation, I'm going to be talking about this from experience, and these are the challenges that we've faced in setting up our company, as well as the challenges we've faced in launching our product. There's an issue with the team, design, sensors, power, prototyping, customer testing, privacy, and launch. Let me dive into the first one, which is building a team. In traditional startup companies, the tech startups, which are usually web-based or mobile application-based, you form your team based on the three, basically the hustler, the hacker, and the hipster. So those are the designers, the developers, and the product managers. The designer is the one that provides the art and the unique interaction with the specific mobile app or the website. The developer builds the bones around it, and the product manager is the one that fashions it so that it runs on time and makes sure that the customers like it. Now, in terms of wearable companies, these are just basically teams themselves, because in a wearable company, these are all the different people that we've interacted with in forming of Simple Wearables. So for designers, we had an industrial designer create our physical design, the UX or user experience designer that created our mobile app, as well as checked with the interaction of our website. We have, for engineers, the firmware engineer, which is in between software and hardware. That's why it's firm. The ones that coded the hardware for functionality. The hardware designer, which is basically the architect of the circuitry. And then the software designer, which is the architect of basically several things, the apps, the web, and the backend. So there's a bunch of us in our company that over time have come in and out to help out. And mostly, actually, we have a lot of these developers back in the Philippines. And in terms of product manager, he's the one, or she's the one that makes sure that designer and developer achieve the goals dictated by the schedule, as well as the needs projected by the customer. And in terms of a startup, this specific person also wears several hats. He or she would be the business development, trying to find the customers, also fundraising, finding the investors, and marketing, promoting it out to the world. This is one of the challenges of a wearable startup, is it's not just a software team that you have to build. It's a complete team with different experiences and different expertise. Now, the second challenge is the user interaction and design. As I mentioned earlier, wearable devices are the only category of computing that is machine-to-human interaction related. And once you're no longer worn, you lose your value. No matter how beautiful you are, no matter how accurate you are, the moment your customer leaves the device and does not wear it anymore, you lose your value. This is the biggest challenge for wearable devices. The third challenge is the sensor. Today, there are almost three major categories or components that you have to have in your system. One is a way to connect. So most popular form of connectivity are Bluetooth connections. And if you look at wearable devices that have been launched recently or in the past, almost all of them use Bluetooth Low Energy because it uses less power and it communicates to your smartphone, which is the way that you can connect and download data. Now, there are other several wearable devices that use Wi-Fi or GPS or 3G, and all of these are becoming more and more proliferate in the devices out there. The second specific chipset is the way you acquire data. And the most common one out there is the accelerometer, which monitors movement through through the force of gravity. So it's measuring it across different axes. And some devices have heart rate monitors, which track the pulse and how fast it goes through an electrode connection to the skin. And some specific devices in healthcare measure temperature, blood glucose, pulse oximetry, and all these other sensors. Now, a startup can create their own sensors if that's their unique strength, but most of the startups out there use off-the-shelf components because time to market is the key for startups. Now, the biggest challenge, I think, for everyone is power, not just the wearable devices out there, but for smartphones as well. These are the challenges. How long would your battery life be? From the very beginning, you should define this. I think, in my opinion, you should have at least last throughout the day, and then ideally, you should last. Ideally, you'd never have to recharge it. And there are actually some devices out there that promise this. Now, to be able to look beyond the traditional lithium-ion batteries, so to extend the life of the product, you can look at alternative sources like solar. And I've seen some products recently launched at CES that use this. They use solar-charged batteries to be able to last forever. And that's their promise. There's also research being done by KAIST University in Korea that harvests your kinetic energy and then stores it. So these are some trends that I'm sure will be popping up in wearable devices in the future, because battery life is one of the toughest constraints right now for any wearable device company. Another challenge is how to prototype it and bring it all together. We have photos from our team, but I sourced this from a design group called Artifact because they're much nicer. They're using here an Arduino board connected to a breadboard, connected to an accelerometer, and various other sensors to test specific algorithms that they may have created. And this is exactly what we've done as well in our company. And not just for hardware, you have to do industrial design prototyping, how your product will look. And I saw this online, and this was the prototype of a very popular wearable device called the Fitbit. And you have to fashion it, you have to tailor the look so that your user will wear it, and has to be incorporated into the daily interaction so that the user will continue wearing it all the time. So you have to do this as well. Now, the other feature that you have to do as any startup is you got to get out there and test it. You can't just stay inside the building and keep on developing it. And this is the biggest lesson I've learned from my professors at Stanford in entrepreneurship is you got to get out of the building and test it as soon as possible. Don't wait until it's beautiful or else you're too late. You got to be able to validate whether your user will use it, if there's a need, if there's a problem that it's solving, and most importantly, if they will pay for it. So these are the things you have to validate before you go down the path of no return, because it's very, very difficult to have a product that nobody uses. You've wasted a lot of time, a lot of energy, resources, and money. Now, one of the most challenging issues that that startups will face is the issue of privacy. As you know, there have been recent hacks through unknown sources. Maybe they're known. The recent Sony hacks, the Target attacks, dealing with customer data. Now, as more and more data are stored from these devices, there are more and more pirates out there that want to steal them. So there are several examples that you could take to ensure that the customer knows what they're giving you. So for example, if you use Google Maps as an application, it will ask you if you would like to share your location. That's one way of allowing you to release yourself from customer giving you information. Now, when it comes to wearable devices, it's become more physical. It enters the physical world, and in fact, Google Glass sometimes is banned from some premises, and in terms of privacy, you'll have to comply with this HIPAA, which is a regulation that you have to comply to when you're storing data from healthcare. And the last issue that you have to overcome is getting it out the door and launching it. There are several approaches to this. One is to do a Kickstarter campaign, which is basically a B2C, business to consumer approach, where you're launching your product into the World Wide Web or to everyone basically. And the focus you have here is to make sure that you have the right branding and that you have the right tailored solution that appeals to a lot of people. Another approach is the business to business, where you sell these devices into big conglomerates or big businesses. So the focus here is on actually developing relationships with the right people and agreeing on partnerships so that they would purchase huge amounts, or at least by bulk, for their purposes. Now, this is the main difference between hardware and software. Is you can't just say publish and it's out on the World Wide Web and you have the product out there for everyone to see. There's a lot of different steps that has to be taken for you to get from your laboratory out to the consumer's hands. You have to manufacture them, which is a very big issue. You have to deliver them. You have to make inventory and store them if delivery and shipping are not the same time. And you have to pay taxes, import duties, all of that. You have to understand all of this. And these are some of the issues that we're facing right now as we try to get our product out the door. So summarizing the different challenges for wearable computing, wearable startups, one is building a team that has the right skill set that will take you forward. And since there's a lot of different skill sets needed, you can't just survive with one person. You have to be a team player that is able to communicate effectively with the rest of your team. Design is very important as well, because this is the key to being worn. You have to have a design that the users are familiar with, and so it has to be integrated into their daily use. And that's why smartwatches are very popular, because people are used to wearing smartwatches. Now, there are other specific ways you can incorporate into your users' day-to-day activities, and that has spawned all these different categories, from glasses to bracelets to belts to socks to earrings and so forth. Sensors, these are part of the design, technical design, that you'll have to make sure that you decide from the very beginning, so that it also makes sure that it consumes the least power, which is a very big problem. Prototyping, customer testing, privacy, and launch. All of these are challenges that you'll have to overcome when you're creating wearable startups. Now, I didn't want to come off as if it's such a difficult life to do a wearable device. It's true that if you make a mistake in software, you can put more hours into it and eventually solve it. For hardware, if you create a mistake, it becomes an expensive paperweight. And I have a bunch of paperweights here that are basically prototypes that we decided not to use in the end. But as the risks go higher, the rewards become bigger as well. So you have 5 to 6 development streams going on, and those are related to web, to mobile, your firmware, your hardware design, your marketing, your branding, and all of these. But since we are the only gateway to the humans and how people interact with their world, it's actually much better than a smartphone, because you can create a true human connection, and you can actually create new experiences that bring about, much lasting joy. So there are many different ways that you can look at this, in that if you create a physical device, you can bring delight to a customer that a mobile app or a website cannot do. You can change habits and you can make more meaning. And this is why we created Simple Wearables. And our vision is to provide peace of mind for the aging population and their loved ones. We've been incorporated in Hong Kong. We were incorporated in Hong Kong in August of 2013, and we've been slowly but surely getting traction on our product as well as customers. Now, these are the problems we aim to solve. First, we wanted to make sure that the elderly remain active. So this is inspired by my grandmother, who's actually in the Philippines. She's 92 years old. She's in Tagaytay, and she lived all her life in the United States. So even if we provide her with caregivers, she wants to be independent and live alone. But we need to make sure that she does her daily routines and daily walks around the block to make sure that her health is maintained, because the moment you stop moving and your muscles start degenerating, and the older you get, the faster your muscles degenerate. And so one of the fears that the elderly have is number two. Since they're frail, they're scared of falling down, and if they fall down, this could be fatal to them. One of my grandmothers actually passed away just a couple of weeks ago because she fell down, and one of the reasons that it's very, very difficult to survive after a fall is that you're frail and you're physically limited, and then there could be um, internal bleeding. So those are very fatal, and you have to be able to attend to them right away if they fall down. And the third issue that we're trying to solve here is that the elderly people are socially isolated. So my grandmother has been widowed for 30 years now. My grandfather died 30 years ago, and she's been alone, and but she got used to it. But still, she really appreciates it when we visit her and say hi to her. So these are the motivations for our company, and we try to solve them for the elderly, because eventually my mom will get there, and I will also get there. So we need to be able to solve these problems that we have identified for our company. In terms of demographics, right now there are about 810 million elderly worldwide, 60 and above, and statistics have shown us that 270, or one-third of them, will fall down. In Hong Kong, 19,939 fell down in 2012, and these are the reported cases. I'm assuming this would be around twice or double the amount of the actual number. So there's a lot of people that face this problem, and it's a very big problem if you don't attend to them right away. Our team is comprised of two full-time founders, myself, Angelo Umali, and my partner Edwin. We work together at Agilent Technologies, and we have 25 years combined experience. We've separated it into I'm the product manager, so I've taken on all the other roles that are not related to the development, and Edwin has taken all the roles related to development. We have firmware developers and software architects in the Philippines, but we'll hire full-time developers as well in the future as we start expanding the business. We have several advisors who have been very helpful. One is Nest, and they've been helping out with the strategy. Every week I meet up with their chief operating officer to make sure that we are headed in the right direction. A second advisor is Daylight Partnership. David, the CEO of Daylight Partnership, and I have started Daylight together actually in the past. And when I started Simple Wearables, I branched off. And David has been advising us on marketing and other approaches, and has been introducing us to many different contacts. P3 International is a third advisor. Bill, the CEO, has been coaching me and our team on the manufacturability of our product and designing it from the ground up. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your time. Please go to our webpage and go to our Facebook page and like it. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Angelo, for an excellent talk. Please join me in a hand for Angelo remotely. We'll now open the audience to some questions, and I'll start us off. So I've read online that you're testing these devices in a hospital in the Philippines. I'd love to hear what your first insights were, what you've learned from your first testing phase, and what have the elderly taught you about wearables for the elderly.
Sure. So that's a big topic, actually. So in terms of our key learnings from testing with the hospital group in the Philippines, for the elderly, they have, you know, in the Philippines, they actually have maids, they have drivers, but they do not completely trust them for professional healthcare. So our device, being connected to a private hospital network, provides them with a peace of mind that if something happens, they're directly connected to the hospital provider. And all of them actually, um, it seems counterintuitive, but they're still very fashionable. They really care about they're really proud of what they wear, and that's a double-edged sword. If the device we're gonna launch in the future, the final design we launch in the future, is not to what they like, it could work against us, but this is why we're working with them to define the future direction of our design. And they are very socially connected to each other. So they formed habits about, they call each other, hey, let's walk to the mall. All of these grandmas have bonded together over these. So these are the unique social interactions that we've discovered. And I could talk more if, to anyone who's interested. But yeah, there's a lot of learnings that we've had over the past few months.
Excellent, thanks. Maybe we can turn it over to Balanga and take some questions from the City Hall office.
Hi, Angelo. Do you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you. That's great. So, anyone would like to ask a question for Angelo? Hi, Angelo. So, while they're waiting for a question, do you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you. Great. So basically, I just like to inspire the students here and asking, uh, personally, why did you started the business? What was the opportunity or the need that you saw?
So I started.
So I started.
Let's see why did I start a business?
Why did I start a business?
It didn't start
It
with
didn't start with
market opportunity. I didn't
opportunity.
Yes. Hi, Angelo. Sorry to interrupt.
interrupt.
It sounds like it might help if we muted the Balanga microphone during your answer, so that there's no echo.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, we hear you.
Okay. So we started with solving a problem. There's still some echo, actually.
Can you mute them?
Okay, I can see that you muted. I think it would be clearer this way. So we started with solving a problem, actually. We didn't go do market research and look at which markets were exploding, because usually the time you do a research, it's already obsolete. When you do market research, those are backwards looking, and you can never really. Okay, the mic is back.
The mic is back.
Mute, please. Hello?
Okay.
All right. Can you mute, please? Because it's gonna do a feedback. There you go. So what we did was try to solve the problem, and that was looking around. Okay, what can we bring to the table as a team? Our team was composed of hardware engineers with some business experience in managing a team. So we looked at software, mobile apps, and all of these. we realized that your grandma will not use a smartphone. The phone that we actually gave her, it's in her closet or in her drawer, and she only takes it when we ask her to take it with her. So it would not work if we used a smartphone. And we realized that to be able to be with her the whole time, it has to be something that integrates into her daily life, and that was, um, the trend was wearable computing, and we tested this, and we realized that yeah, it's wearable computing matches our team's strengths, and there was a unique problem facing the elderly, and that was falling down. Because one of my grandmothers fell down a couple months ago, then she fell down again, which actually led to her death. And so my other grandmother is the one we were watching for, make sure that that doesn't happen to her. And if she falls down, we need to attend to her right away. Even if she had private help at home, they would not know exactly what to do at the right moment. And every minute counts when that emergency has happened or triggered. And so an emergency alert system that would trigger calling for help right away and sending her to the hospital has been, we thought of that. And these have existed in the United States, but these don't exist in the Philippines. So we tried to use the same technology back in the Philippines.
Thank you, Angelo, for that. We'd also like to say condolence for your grandmother.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone, please, would like to ask Angelo a question or two? Sige po, kahit hindi siya technical, kahit wiring. By the way, Angelo, you have a blood of Filipino, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. Do you still understand Tagalog?
Oo naman.
Oo naman.
Oh. we should have asked that. Dapat yun una namin tinanong. Tama?
I didn't know how to respond because I'm not sure if Kevin can understand Filipino.
Right, this is true. I can't understand Tagalog right now, but I'm working on it. Catch up with you guys.
Yeah, Kevin and the others would not. And speak in English, please. Okay. Questions, please. Sorry. We have a question here.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Mr. Angelo, I'm Stephanie, college instructor from our university. Back when I was in college, my thesis project was focused on stress level monitoring. So we had also hardware devices worn by our user. But we had a problem with transferring the information from like yours, like your company, we had wearable devices, and then we transfer the information to our Android phone. So in your company, how do you transfer those information? As you said, you are connected to private hospitals in the Philippines in your testing. So how do you transfer your information to those private hospitals?
Okay. So we have. I'm gonna ask you to mute again. Okay. So our device actually uses the GSM network that transmits your physical location through GPS, your coordinates, as well as the battery level and everything. So that it connects to a response center that is monitored by the private hospital network. So this is how we can track them. And we also have, since it's also a step counter, we can download the steps through your mobile app through Bluetooth Low Energy. So Bluetooth is the universal way, it seems, that most of the wearable devices out there transmit data because it's low power. And that's what we've been using. Okay? Perfect.
Great, Edmer. Any
Thank you,
more?
Angelo, for that. Yeah, well, maybe a couple more questions.
I think you're on mute. If there's any questions, let me know.
Hi, Angelo. Maybe while they're thinking of a last question, perhaps I'd just like to ask, what are a couple of things you'd like to tell our young viewers to inspire them to, basically this startup thing in knowledge-based business is really quite new. We're really thankful for our leaders who's bringing this up as a vision of the city. So, as it feels like an alien thing to many of the residents of our city, what would you like to tell them to inspire them to get into it or be interested in it?
Yeah, so um, I would say I'm trying to put myself in your shoes because I was like you at some point. And I was back in college. My trajectory was okay, find a job, earn some money, maybe pay off some loans if, back then. And try to be a responsible person or son or something. But what I think everyone should think about is try to make a difference. I think that's the basic crux of why some startups are alive today, is to make meaning and not make money. If you want to make money, go do those, go work at Goldman and Sachs or banks, go work at Google. Hi, Kevin. Go work somewhere else if you want to make money. But I challenge you to make meaning and make a difference in the world. And what is that problem that nobody has really solved today? And there's so many out there in your specific unique scenarios that you face every day. What is that problem? And solve it. And that's how a startup begins. And solve the problem, make meaning, and then the money will come. And I think that's the message I want to make, because when people think we want to do a startup, oh, you're going to be a billionaire. That's 1 in a billion chances. The reason we started this company is to make a difference and to make meaning.
Thank you for that message, Angelo. So I think that's well said. We had one more question. Is that okay?
Hi, sir. I'm Joe from the industry. I've read in the internet that two of the disadvantages of wearable computers is first the security and privacy of information, personal information of the user. How do you address the security and privacy control of the information? And the second one is the pricing of the wearable computer. How expensive is your product, and how can those people who can afford to buy, who can afford to have it, can actually have it in the future?
Okay. So there were two questions. The first one was the privacy, and second one was related to pricing. The first one I'm going to address first with privacy. We are, as any wearable device company is doing, not just actually wearable device, any tech company is doing, you have to make sure that you design your product for security. So this means that you encode the transmission of the data online, and then when it's stored in a database, you make sure that that is secure and locked in a way that cannot be hacked. And everyone is vulnerable to this, even the biggest companies out there. And so you really just have to make sure that you put the right security measures in place. And actually, there are standards out there that you can measure yourself against if you meet it. So that's my goal for the team, is to make sure that we are compliant, or at least up to the level that is required for security purposes. Now, in terms of pricing, pricing is always, you could go both ways. You could be a free device. That is one specific approach that some wearable devices have done, is that it's the inkjet model. You know, you give the printer away for free, but you charge on inks. So that's one way that some healthcare startups have been doing it. There's the opposite of the spectrum, where they just want to be niche and be fashion trendy. So these are $1,000 wearable devices that just want to make a statement. So it depends really on who your target user is. If your user is the affluent, design savvy, and fashion forward people, you can price your device as high as you want. And if your wearable device serves the community, or specific, it has to be disposable, for example, then you can approach it from the other end of the spectrum. So it all depends on your end user and the value that you provide to the user. Because in the end, if you provide no value, no matter how cheap you are, nobody will buy you. So I think it starts with the end user and the value you provide them.
Thank you for that answer, Angelo. We have more questions. Now nobody's talking Tagalog because you can understand.
My apologies.
So you can.
I'll do better next talk.
Yeah, we'll still have Google Talk 1003, right? So
I'm sorry?
you might be able to catch some Tagalog words and learn it. Up to 1003.
I'll get started.
More questions?
Any more questions from Ryan?
Yeah, I think that's it for us. So again, we'd like to say thank you to Angelo. Condolence and maraming salamat. Maraming salamat for information and words of wisdom you shared.
Yes, another hand for Angelo, please.
Thank you.
So at this time, thanks again for joining us. I wanted to segue into another segment. Oh, sorry, Edmer, I'll just mute the Balanga side. Yeah, I'd like to segue into another segment where we'll briefly chat about entering the engineering profession. And as I understand it, there are some technical and non-technical students joining us from Balanga today. And so at Google, there are a lot of fascinating things, and I promise you, we're not just out to make money, but we're also working on very difficult problems that fascinate us. And we also have the support to bring fascinating speakers like Angelo to you in Balanga. And I'd love to continue the conversation with Roseanne Borja, who's joined us today, software engineer at Google, to chat about each of our paths in engineering, from the university to the workplace, and of course we also have Angelo here to join us as well. So here's Roseanne.
Oh, hi. So my name is Roseanne Borja. I was born in the Philippines, and I grew up there until I was around 12, so that's around grade 6, and then we moved to Toronto, Canada, and so that's where I spent high school and college. So I went to the University of Waterloo, and I studied computer science and bioinformatics. I got into Google through my college's co-op program. So my college has this internship program where basically you get like some certain time in between your study terms to work, to do internships for some employers that the college has connections with. And then it's a 5-year program, and by the time you're done, you have 2 years of work experience. And so I applied through the co-op program for a full-time job at Google, and now I'm here as a software engineer. Yep. That's pretty much my story. If anyone has any questions then, about like how to enter to Google, or like advice for college students maybe on how to interview, like you can also feel free to ask. Also, I speak Tagalog.
Also, I
so.
speak Tagalog. So. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I think they're muted.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, Roseanne. You hear
Hi.
us?
Yes.
Hi. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was supposedly the first question. Do you understand Tagalog as well?
Nakakaintindi naman po.
Hindi naman po.
Ah, so now wala muna magtatagalog ulit. Just kidding. So anyone who would like to ask Roseanne a question? Like, is there a reviewer or an answer sheet he was able to keep for the test in Google? Questions? Maybe I'll pop up the first question. What has working in Google done for you? I mean, how much has it changed your life in terms of your perspective or the joy you get out of it? Of course, aside from the financial thing, the benefits and how did it turn around your life? I mean, the changes that happened.
Well, first of all,
Sorry.
Okay. It was a big change for me because I had to move from Canada to the States. So, kahit na like even though they're both English-speaking countries and they're very similar, there's also like slight differences in culture. But Google is a really great place to work. It's very, very diverse, and the people here are not just smart, but they're also very, very caring. And so it's a good opportunity to like meet like different kinds of people. And I think by being here, like it challenges you to work your hardest, and so like your potential is developed. Yeah, and there's also like you get to meet like a lot of different people, and like there's always like exciting projects going on, and so that exposes you to a lot of different things, and so you're always learning. You're always learning about like new things and new developments in the tech industry. So it's pretty cool.
And also throw in there, and I'll just mute for a second, that there are many places to explore engineering, not just in the Philippines, but also around Silicon Valley and outside of Google as well. And so, if anyone in Balanga would love to join us for the kind of work that we do here, then I invite you all to visit google.com/jobs. If you're interested in internship, then you can send us your resumes to Google, and if you land an internship through Google, then Google would be happy to sponsor your J1 visa, which would allow you to work in the United States. And we look forward to this kind of experience as an opportunity for you students to bring back some of the Silicon Valley experience back home and share that with your communities as well. And of course, we look forward to working with you, possibly working for you in the future. So, so please keep us in mind. Angelo's been all over the world working on these kinds of problems as well. So, Angelo, what would you say is the biggest difference between your current experiences working at a startup versus, say, other places that you've worked at Agilent, for instance?
Sure. We're on camera, right? Well, let me see. As a startup, the only advantage you have as a startup, and that's the defining characteristic of any startup, is that you move as fast as you can. In a big corporation, even if you're given free reign over processes and resources, you will always run into some politics, some form of resistance, because it's a big organization. It's an organism that will react to any change. But whereas in a startup, you define the way that organism will grow. It's not a fully formed organism yet, so you have the opportunity to define it. So you can define your processes, your product, your team, everything. You build up from the bottoms up. Whereas in a big corporation, you inherit it. So whether I think it may be true for Google as well, but certainly in other big corporations, you inherit the culture, you inherit the team, you inherit the products, and you inherit the processes. And sometimes these are not the best or the most ideal, and sometimes they are. So you learn from them. So yeah, in terms of working in a startup, it's an adventure. It's like a new thing every day. Every morning I wake up, it's like, oh, where did that come from? It's a new problem every day, and it's a challenge, but also that's what I live for. Is like I like being challenged all the time. So you can get that working at a startup, and you get to make a bigger difference because a small change, you really feel it because you're the one who implemented it. So it's a rewarding. It's been rewarding to work at a startup, but also not to say it was easy. It's been a very difficult time as well, but very very rewarding.
Great, thanks for that. Edmer, any more questions from the audience?
We have a question here from one of our participants. Yeah, Rosen.
I have a question for Ms. Being a software engineer at Google, what would be your two recommended programming languages that you have to have much knowledge of or much practice of to be able to be a good software engineer at your company?
It depends what kind of work you want to do. So I would say, like off the top of my head, C++ and Java. So C++ is good because you get to learn memory management, and it's not as clunky as C. There's object-oriented programming in it. Java is good for web, for mobile, like Android. So Android is pretty big at Google because it's a Google company. And I think also like it's good for interviewing. So if any of you are interested in interviewing with Google, whether for an internship or for full time, I think most of the interviewers are familiar with C++ and Java. So it's a good, those are good languages to learn. And I think pretty much like all of our technologies are written in C++ and Java, like one of them.
Yeah.
So if I have students really interested in of having an internship in Google, should they have a big knowledge about Java? Do they have on their interview? Do you have like programming? Do you include programming in your interview, like hands-on programming?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Do you have hands-on on your interview for internships?
Oh. It's good to have hands-on. Yeah, it's good to have hands-on experience because I think the stuff that you learn in school is one thing, but like you don't really get to apply it until you do a project of your own or actually like do work at a job. So for me, I think the most valuable experiences I had in university was not like the ones my classes, but like the ones outside the classroom where I did internships. So that's where the coding was actually drilled into my head because I had to like do it, and then like when I actually ran the code, then I see the errors, and then I see like, oh, I'll learn from this mistake. Sorry.
There are hands-on programming questions during the interview.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, during the interview, it's for engineering interviews, it's all hands-on programming questions. So they will ask you, oh, there's this problem, blah, blah, blah. Can you solve this by writing a program? And so you have to write code on a whiteboard for the engineering interview. I think for other interviews, like maybe program manager, it's a completely different style. But for engineering, it's all technical programming questions.
Thank you for the answer, and Roseanne.
You're welcome.
Everybody was shaking their head, and I'm not sure what that means. Other question? I think that means they'll be listening more now to their professors than a while ago that they were. So other questions, please.
All right. I guess if that's all the questions, then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Then, so thanks again to our esteemed speaker Angelo for joining us today and sharing with us about Simple Wearables. And thanks again to Roseanne as well for joining us, and everyone at Balanga for joining us. And so. Please stay tuned for our next episode next month, where Edmer will be sharing with us the Balanga 2020 goals for the city, and we'd love to connect you with Mountain View again. And yeah, let's keep the momentum going. Let's talk to you guys later. Thanks again.
Bye.
Maraming salamat po.
Thank you. Thank you, Roseanne, Kevin, Angelo. Thank you for your time, and we'll
Thank
see
you.
Kevin again, perhaps Angelo and Roseanne as well, some other time.
Next time.
Maraming salamat.
Maraming salamat po.